Welcome to Determine Out Loud, our podcast series that's all about minding your business in contract management and source to pay. And now, your host, VP of Product Marketing for Determine, Constantine Limbarakis.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for this next iteration of Determine Out Loud. Joining with us, one of our implementation managers here at Determine, Trent Fairbrother. How are you doing today in Carmel, Indiana?
Greatest day of my life. How about you?
Excellent. Well, today we have some pretty serious topics that we want to focus on. And, being an implementation manager and having been involved in several deployments here at Determine, we thought it'd make a lot of sense to talk a little bit about implementations. We often talk about the technology. We also often talk about features and functions and, concerns and needs from the procurement world. But getting it to work and getting things up and running takes us a fair amount of experience and knowledge and collaboration with clients and partners to get things to work. So, Trent, you've been really involved in this process, and your background in having done implementations, kind of where have you kind of started that process?
My background is a mix between project management and actually art. So I bring a kind of a creative nature and kind of outlook on implementing software. And one of the best parts about that is cloud software. Cloud software is kind of the wave of the future, and one of the key aspects that our company focuses on and makes implementation not only fun, but also maybe a little bit easier for the customer is it provides a very user-friendly experience. When you're showing someone a system that they can actually just look at and kind of figure out on their own as you're showing them, that makes life 10 times easier.
It's interesting that you hear that fine arts background, but you're relating that back to a technology deployment and trying to understand how to best make that a usable product, because in the end it's that interface with the technology that's really all important to increase user adoption and get people to use a technology. One of the things that I had experienced back in the days when I was doing a lot of deployments in ERP, et cetera, is you were dealing more with on-premise. A lot of things were customization. You had to make sure how many customizations you had and had to limit that and worry about upgrades and going from one version to the next and having to port those customizations over to get to the new version. And when you're dealing with a source to pay standpoint, that's a very, very different dynamic, particularly in the cloud. So how do you relate that conversation about doing a cloud deployment? How do you talk to customers about understanding, what the difference between the cloud framework might be than, say, if they're coming from an ERP or, an SAP background or an on-premise that they may not be familiar with a cloud or a SaaS world?
Hey, that's a great question. And I do, in fact, get this question from customers on every single implementation. And I think the best way to kind of describe it is, when I stated earlier that Determine is using cloud platform, which is the wave of the future, I put us up there with, some of the bigger names like Salesforce or even Facebook. And I say, hey, if you're using Facebook or Netflix, you don't go to them and say, I need this to work one special way for me. They're providing you with one of the most amazing solutions you've ever seen. They're going to provide you with updates that you haven't even dreamed of as you go forward. And as you move forward, you're part of this global community. So the environment of Determine that I'm using is the same as one of my customers is using. It's the same as another customer. So they start to really picture that, oh, I really am part of this new culture of technology that we're all a part of. And any changes that I might need, because they still do have that option. They can still ask for new features and new enhancements. But if it comes around, it's going to benefit the world. It's going to benefit anyone else using the platform. And I think once they get that mindset, they become not only more comfortable, but even more excited because they know that other people are going to come up with cool things and they're going to get it.
Yeah, and that's something that might be, the consumer world, like you said, is really kind of driving that, and this notion of, when I go to say like a Gmail, and that new button is there, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. I didn't have an impact on that, but because it's there now, I'm benefiting from it too. But how do you get to like the level of them understanding, maybe the flexibility of the Determined Cloud platform helps them do that? Do you let them know, hey, this is something that, you could do as part of a configuration? Is this something that you may want to just try to do out of the box? How do you go down that conversation and making sure that they understand how that's different in a cloud framework?
Yeah. So one of the key things that we let them know from the very get-go is the fact that we are a solution that has quite a few different modules and options. So a lot of times when you're getting something, let's say for dinner you're getting a sandwich, you know that you're only getting a sandwich. However, imagine going to a place where you have a sandwich in front of you, and then all of a sudden you want some sushi or a taco. That's really what our solution provides. We have a number of solutions that are all related. So we've got our sourcing, we've got our supplier management, we've got our supplier performance management, we've got full contract management. So we have a number of options. So the first thing we let them know is regardless of what you've already purchased, you've got this that you can configure a number of ways to meet your business needs. We're going to always provide you with the best practices that we've gained over 25 years of experience. But then in addition, you can always get these other modules that may meet that need that they're looking for in configuration.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you bring up is we have a lot of capability on a cloud platform. The key point here is turning things on and off that gives them a lot of that flexibility. And so as part of that, when you're considering the complexity of, say, a procure-to-pay deployment versus doing something that's just, say, upstream, where it might be supplier management, sourcing, and CLM, how do you address the different challenges that are there? And what are some of the biggest challenges that you have to consider maybe by looking at those different types of deployment?
The first thing is actually a quote that I want to take from our CEO, Patrick. He said something to me, and I'll never forget it, and I use it to answer this question quite often. He said that, one of the key things that we need to be successful is to show people how easy it is to use our system. And I've had the privilege and the honor to really take that in and apply it and share it with customers. And, you asked, what's the difference between P2P or sourcing or contract management? And what we're finding is there are very few differences. Maybe people may want some extra integration work, but they're very, very similar in the fact that we create a very user-friendly UI that allows you to configure and allows you to utilize the system. So what I've actually utilized on my projects, and I just actually got back from a customer, is I expressed that to them directly. They were actually setting up P2P and sourcing. And we were able to implement both pieces very, very quickly at the same time. And the customer was not only very excited about it, but they said, wow, that was easy. This is, that's the kind of reaction that I'm looking for. So because our platform is so user-friendly, because we've taken the consideration of the customer in mind and making sure that they're number one, we've been able to do those pretty easily.
If you had one of the top challenges that you experience in terms of preparing for an implementation or deployment, what would you say that challenge is?
I would say the biggest challenge that we face today is communication. Just making sure that we're all using the same language when we're talking about contract terms, talking about sourcing terms, or even P2P terms. I think what you'll find is most of the time you'll have a customer that has been around for 50 years and they call something one thing and we call it something different. And it's really breaking down that wall from them and us and becoming we, making sure that we're using the same terminology. I think a lot of times people dig down into the weeds and they aren't speaking the same language and it becomes frustrating. And I completely sympathize with our customers. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had some successes is because we take the time to make sure that we're on the same page, using the same terminology, and then move forward. But I have to admit, sometimes there's some challenges because we are a global community and our customers are global. So sometimes we actually have actual language barriers, which add a little fun. Fun.
And we talked a little bit about this before, and understanding that, being a global company, there are, nuances. So not only in procurement, we're often finding that there's not common terminology even within the United States, and then taking that to 2 or 3 levels beyond that. I could only imagine, some of the discussions that we're having in terms of understanding what a term is, and then actually trying to translate that term into the local or native language. Maybe you can reflect on, 1 or 2 of the most recent successes and experiences that you had in doing some of these deployments, particularly maybe on an international level, where you have some of that dynamics.
Yeah, of course. I've had the honor and experience of working with one of our international customers in Europe. It was amazing to work with a company that has been around for 100 years. They've had experience using a number of systems and kind of the world of technology up to this point. So introducing them to the cloud technology and the different possibilities they have was amazing. In addition, we were also able to show them a new implementation methodology, which allowed us to implement the software in 4 weeks. So the fact that we were able to do kickoff to go live in 4 weeks really speaks volumes about how user-friendly our system is. All the while, working with the customer to understand language barriers, make sure that we're on the same page in terminology, and really working together as a team to push forward and get everything up and running. I would say that being able to do that in 4 weeks was pretty amazing.
That is a very rapid implementation cycle. And one of the other things that you talked to me a little bit about, it was the culture. So talk to me a little bit about that how we help them take that and make that technology their own.
Exactly. So a lot of times when you are working with a new culture, you're going to have moments, and I'll be honest, we had moments where we weren't on the same page, and those are always a struggle, but it's really cool using the Determined Cloud platform to come together and align and make sure that we understand what's going on. So we were able to take their culture and say, oh, this is what you're used to doing. This is how you understand or utilize this functionality, and then say, okay, try it this way. If it doesn't, let's configure it this way. And really, I have to admit, at the end of the day, the Determined Cloud platform was actually the thing that we had in common. It's the middle ground that we're able to come to and utilize to make sure that we were always on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's quite an experience, and considering it was international and you did it in such a rapid framework, having that common language and understanding the capabilities of the platform is pretty cool. So with that, Trent, I want to thank you for sharing some of your experiences here and your inputs, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.